Hello everybody, today we're going to be discussing the Capital One Venture X card and whether that is a card that you should get or not. Now, the goal of this video is not to convince you to get the Capital One Venture X card. It's also not to convince you not to get the Capital One Venture X card. See, many people ask, what's the best travel credit card? The Capital One Venture X, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, or the American Express Platinum, or perhaps another premier travel credit card? And the answer to that is always, it depends. It depends on what your goals are. It depends on what type of credit spending you do. And it depends on what you expect to do. So today we're going to be discussing the Venture X card and comparing it to its competitors. We will also have another video about why you should get or why you should not get the Chase Sapphire Reserve and why you should get or why you should not get the American Express Platinum. Now, things that don't matter, and these things should not go into your planning of whether you want to get a card or not. Primarily, it's the interest rate. You should not care that the Capital One Venture X card has a 30% interest rate. You should be paying your bills on time before it's due so that you do not have to pay interest. The name of this YouTube channel is Conquering Your Credit Card Points, not conquering your credit card debt. That is another channel. If you're worried about the 30% interest rate, then there are other channels that you should probably be benefiting from. You also shouldn't care how the card feels or how the card looks or how heavy it is. These are all things that don't matter in the quality of the card. Now, wherever we are on our credit card journeys, whether we're a beginner or whether we're in what we call our end game and we no longer want credit cards, there are generally three categories of people. The first one is that they only want to get a couple of credit cards. They hate credit cards. They hate having to deal with them. They hate having to worry about them. They just want one or two because you need them here. You need to build a credit score, or you need to rent a car, or various other things that require a credit card. And then there's another camp of people. They want to get a few cards. They want to get a card that they specifically use for groceries, or they want to get a card that they specifically use for restaurants so they could maximize the amount that they receive. And there's also a third group called churners, where they open a credit card, they get the sign-up bonus of the credit card, and then they no longer use the credit card because they're already on to the next credit card. Now, the Capital One Venture X could possibly apply to all three of these groups, or wherever you fall and wherever you are on your credit card journey. So now, in talking about the Capital One Venture X, the first thing that we're going to talk about is the application process. Now, one of the problems with the Venture X is how difficult it is to be approved for the card. And when we say it's difficult to be approved, we don't mean that you need some extensive credit history, or you need so many credit cards, or you need so much of a limit already. It's actually quite the opposite. Capital One is less likely to approve you if you have a lot of travel credit cards already. If you're somebody that has several credit cards and you pay your bill in full every single month and you never carry a statement balance and you never pay interest, you're not the person that Capital One is targeting. And if you already have several travel credit cards, then you are also not their target customer. The best time to get the Venture X card is early on your journey. And we don't mean so incredibly early that you don't have any other credit cards. You should have at least 1 to 2 years worth of credit. And when we say 1 to 2 years worth of credit, we mean 12 to 24 months of on-time payments. That is what we're looking for when we say 1 to 2 years. It's also good not to have recently opened some new credit cards, because that shows Capital One that you're only in it for the sign-up bonus. You want to somehow convince Capital One that you're getting this card as your main card. So if you already have several travel credit cards, it might be best to go a bit of time, maybe 6 months to 12 months, without applying for the Venture X. Now, there is something that helps. Capital One does have a pre-approval tool, and that link is in the description down below, where you can see if you're likely to be approved for the Venture X or not. It doesn't take any hit to your credit score, and it doesn't result in a hard inquiry. But it still isn't a hard set rule. Just because you were pre-approved does not mean that you're going to be approved. Now, in terms of its competitors, The American Express Platinum, it tells you if you're approved or not before you get the hard inquiry. And if you already have a personal credit card with American Express, then you probably won't get a hard inquiry at all. So when we're talking about the qualifications of the card, you also might need a certain salary for the card because this card is one of the upper end cards. Now, when I applied for this Capital One Venture X card, I did not have any income. And so I put my parents' income down as my own income, which you are allowed to do if you're above the age of 21. However, when I did that, they asked me for tax documents from my parents and a notarized form from my parents saying that I have access to their income. That is a hurdle that I saw when I applied for the card. I also applied for the Chase Sapphire Reserve and the American Express Platinum without any income, and I still put my parents' income down, and that didn't result into any issues. And lastly, in the application process, many people, especially churners, they're very obsessed with referrals. They want to give out their referrals so that they can get points. Because when you have a Capital One Venture X card and you tell somebody else to get the Capital One Venture X card and they use your referral, then you can get 25,000 points up to 4 times in 1 year. Now, 25,000 points, that might seem like a lot, and we'll talk about the value of points here in a bit. But the issue is that if the person that you're referring the card to already has a Capital One card, then you cannot refer them for the Venture X card. See, the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Chase Sapphire Preferred or any Chase card, if you've had them in the past, you can still be referred to them and you can still have the referrer get their bonus. The American Express Platinum, a lot of people get that card with hopes of referring a lot of other people, and they continuously use that to get their referral points. However, if you're already in the Capital One system, then you cannot be referred to this card. So that sums up the application process for the Capital One Venture X. However, as we discussed earlier, it's kind of difficult to be approved for this card. There are people that have great credit scores that do not get approved. There are people that do everything that Capital One wants them to do and they still struggle to get approved. But there are others that, because they were denied the Capital One Venture X card, they had applied for a lesser version of that card, such as the Capital One Venture. And then when they had that card a year after having it, they called Capital One and they asked them to upgrade their Venture card into a Venture X card. And there's different success rates, there are different data points on that. That doesn't seem like a method that we can rely on. Now, after we're done with the application process, we hit our first real hurdle, and that is the annual fee. Now, the annual fee for the Venture X card is $395 a year, compared to the Chase Sapphire Reserved, which is $550, and the American Express Platinum, which is $695. Now, for many of us, this is going to be our first travel credit card, and it might be our first card that has an annual fee. $395 is a lot. However, when we're discussing the annual fee for any travel card, we need to look at what we get in return to see if we can at least match the $395 or perhaps even exceed it. Now, the Capital One Venture X card does come with a $300 travel credit. And what we need to realize is a $300 travel credit isn't exactly worth $300. Because one, we must use the Capital One $300 credit in the Capital One portal. And their portal is run by Hopper. Chase's portal is run by CX Loyalty, and American Express's portal is run by Expedia. Now, there are many horror stories online of people using travel portals and then having issues. I, for one, have booked hotels, rental cars, and flights with having minimal issues. One time, I had booked a main cabin American Airlines flight, and it was a short distance flight. It was a short domestic flight. And when I booked it, I got a confirmation code from Capital One. But then a few days later, American Airlines canceled my flight, and they told me that it was because Capital One never actually booked the flight. And I saw at this point that I was getting a refund, but the cost of that flight had increased dramatically. So I called Capital One and I explained to them the situation. And after 40 minutes of talking to them, they finally gave me that flight. And they couldn't figure out why it was canceled. But I was eventually able to get that flight back and I didn't need to pay anything extra. So like I said, there can be a lot of issues with the Capital One portal. However, most of the time, nothing wrong is going to happen. However, when it does, it can be kind of daunting. The Capital One portal, though, does have its positives. For instance, they have the price protection policy, where they tell you if a flight price is going to go up or down in the future. And if they say that a specific flight is not going to go down any further, that this is the minimum price that it's ever going to be, and you book that flight based off of that, if it goes down within 10 days, they will give you a credit of up to $50. For instance, if you book a one-way domestic American Airlines flight for $110 and Capital One tells you that it's not going to go down, and it eventually does go down within 10 days to, like, let's say $50, then they'll give you a $50 credit because you relied on their assurance. So that is one of the good things about the Capital One portal. Now, the other credit that the Capital One Venture X card gives you is every anniversary they'll give you 10,000 bonus miles. Now, it's hard to quantify 10,000 bonus miles. Many people say that you can take 10,000 miles and use it on the portal and that'll give you $100 worth of value. But when we're valuing points and when we're valuing credits, we need to understand that it's very easy to give a different dollar amount than it says. Many people say, like, oh, look at this one credit card. It'll give you $200 of Dell credit, for instance. However, if we're not normally shopping on Dell, or if we're not normally shopping for electronics, then that Dell credit is not going to be worth $200. For instance, let's say we do have that card and it gives us a $200 credit. So we buy a microphone that we were already going to buy on Dell. However, that microphone was $160 on Amazon. Then that $200 Dell credit is technically only worth $160. So the important thing is, when we're comparing multiple different credit cards and seeing that the credits they give us, is to value those credits correctly. How we use them or how we anticipate using them. We shouldn't look at cards that we want and see their the credits that they give and then move our spending habits to have the card apply for us. No, we should look at our spending habits and see which credit card applies to those spending habits. Now, this card, obviously spending $300 a year on travel isn't something that's going to be largely difficult for all of us. Most of us do in fact travel at least once or twice a year. That's why we're on this channel. However, if we are coming towards the end of the year and we realize that we didn't use the $300 travel credit, there are ways to instead of that credit expiring, to use them in the future. Some people recently, they booked United flights. And after they used their travel credit and booked the United flight, they went on United's website and canceled the United flight, and then they got credit back into their United account. So if we are finding it difficult to justify the $300 travel credit in one specific year, we could always use it for the future. However, it might be best not to consider a travel credit card if spending $300 a year on travel is rather difficult. Now, the next benefit that comes with the Capital One Venture X card is the authorized users. Now, you get 4 free authorized users to this card, and they get many of the other benefits. They get lounge access, they get Hertz presidential status, they get purchase and travel protection such as trip cancellations, trip delays, the lost luggage protection, the cell phone protection, the primary rental car insurance, and they get various other Visa Infinite benefits. Now, we'll go through all these benefits in detail soon. However, it's important to look at that they get all of these credits for free. It doesn't cost you anything to add them as an authorized user. And then they can go to lounges. They can have a presidential status with Hertz, and they can have etc. Now, the American Express Platinum card, it has 2 versions of authorized users. The first version, which gives them lounge access and the other expectations that you have with the Platinum card, is $195 a year in the annual fee. But they also have a free version, and that free version does give global entry or TSA PreCheck. So you can add free authorized users on the American Express Platinum if you know a lot of people that are in need of global entry. The Chase Sapphire Reserve also has a $75 annual fee for authorized users. and you can have 7 authorized users on the Chase Sapphire Reserve. So if you have parents or if you have siblings and you want to have them come to the lounge with you, then you can add them as an authorized user and they can come to the lounge. The next benefit of the Capital One Venture X card is the sign-up bonus. If you get this card, if you're approved for this card, and you spend $4,000 within 3 months of being approved, then you get 75,000 miles. Now, it's hard to quantify 75,000 miles because we all value points differently. If you were to use 75,000 miles on the Capital One travel portal, then you'll get $750 worth of travel credit. In addition to the 75,000 miles that we get, and again, we'll quantify that later, we also get regular earnings on purchases. We get 2 times miles on every purchase that we do. We get 5 times miles on flights via the Capital One portal, and then we get 10 times miles on hotels and car rentals booked on the Capital One portal. So this is already a decent everyday spender card. If you want at least 2% back or 2 times miles on every purchase, then you can get the Capital One Venture X card. However, if in addition to the Capital One Venture X card, you also have another Capital One card that gives you cash back or miles, you can combine that with the miles that you get on the Capital One Venture X. For instance, if you have the Capital One Saver card, which has no annual fee, that gives you 3 times miles back on dining, 3 times miles back on groceries, 3 times on entertainment, 3 times on streaming, and 8 times on Capital One entertainment. So normally with the Capital One Saver card, you would get cash back. But because you also have the Venture X card, then you can utilize the 2 together and get 3 times back on dining, 3 times back on groceries, and then 2 times on everything else that you would need. So this is an easy end game setup for people who don't want too many credit cards. If they only want 1 or 2 credit cards and just put all their spending on those cards, because you have the Saver card that'll give you the 3 times back on the categories that we mentioned, and any other card, any other purchase, we just put it on the Capital One Venture X card. So when we're talking about, you have this many miles, how much is that actually worth? Well, the answer is it depends on every person and how we utilize those miles. For instance, we could use them on the Capital One travel portal, and 75,000 points gives you $750 worth of travel. But there are a lot of other ways that we can utilize those points. To maximize those points, we can transfer our points to airline or hotel competitors, and those transfer partners are on the screen. Now, going into point redemptions and transferring them, this could be a whole video in itself. In fact, every single thing in this, every single positive, every single negative thing that we talked about this card could be a video of itself. This is just a summary. But there are several instances where you can get a good redemption. For instance, there's a Virgin Atlantic flight coming up in March from JFK to London for 6,000 points. 6,000 points from JFK to London. So if we get the sign-up bonus of the Venture X, the 75,000 points, we can fly 12 times from JFK to London. That is 6 round trips. That obviously has great value, but how often are we going to use that? We might not want to go to London every single week, but there are other ways to book on partner airlines. And that, as I said, is by partnerships. For instance, we can find a Delta flight from ATL to MCI booked on Virgin Atlantic for 7,500 points. So if you think about it that way, if you get the Capital One Venture X sign-up bonus, then you get 10 Delta flights from ATL to MCI booked on Virgin Atlantic's website. This is because Virgin Atlantic is a partner with Delta Airlines, so we can book Delta flights, and usually that's the best way to find a good domestic redemption. Now, there's other redemptions too. For instance, with 6,000 points sent to Etihad Airlines, we can book an American Airlines flight for just 6,000 points from DFW to MCI. So for a 75,000 point sign-up bonus, that'll give us 12 flights from DFW to MCI if we want to take that route. Of course, for many of these international travel partners, you will need a passport to book even a domestic flight. And that just depends on the international partner. Some of them don't require that. Now, speaking of American Airlines, there's also other redemptions going on right now. And when we look at different transfer partners, that could be a reason that we choose one credit card over another. Because say like we really like Hawaiian Airlines, so we get the American Express Platinum card because then we can transfer our points to Hawaiian Airlines. And when we're doing that, right now, if you book an American Airlines flight on Alaskan Airlines and it's less than 700 miles away, then that flight is going to be 4,500 points. Now, Alaskan Airlines doesn't have any credit card travel partners. They have their Bank of America travel credit card, but they don't have partners where you can transfer your points from. But they do have a partnership with Hawaiian Airlines right now. So what you can do is have 4,500 American Express points, transfer them to Hawaiian Airlines, and then transfer those points to Alaskan Airlines, and then you can book an American Airlines flight for 4,500 points. And different flights, the farther they are, cost more. For instance, Phoenix to MCI would be 7,500 American Express points. That's just one example of many that exist in transferring your points. But the thing to be careful is if we're getting a credit card based on its travel partners, is that points get devalued over time. For instance, what you could purchase with 5,000 points from a partner website is worth like 9,000 or 10,000 points now. Inflation has hit the points industry. So that's just something that we need to look for when we're sorry about that. My a light bulb just got fused in another room and it caught me off guard. As you can see, we're having trouble keeping the lights on, so we really need you guys to support this channel if you can. Now moving on to the other benefits of the card, we have no foreign transaction fees. So if we're in a foreign land, many times many of our credit cards would have a foreign transaction fee that we need to use every time we swipe our card. And the good thing about the Capital One Venture X card is that it's a Visa. It's a Visa Infinite card. And many places throughout the world take Visa. There's still places, even in America, that don't take American Express. So if we know there's certain areas like in Tokyo, for instance, it's hard to find places that take American Express there. So if that's something that we're into, if we go to a certain place that doesn't take a certain credit card, then that should also go into consideration over what credit card we should get. Now, the next benefit is the Premier Hotel and Resort Collection. Within the portal, you can book the special selection of upper-end hotels, and they'll give you benefits such as early check-in or late checkout, free breakfast for two, a $100 experience credit, and upgrades if they have availability for them. Now, obviously, the American Express Platinum has the Fine Hotels and Resorts and the Hotel Collection, whereas the Chase Sapphire Reserve has the Edit, which is their versions of upper-end hotels. Now, many times when we book these upper-end hotels, we see that they cost more on the credit card website than they do in their own website. So that's just something to look out for if we're getting a credit card for that reason. Now, the next benefit that we're looking at is the global entry / the TSA PreCheck credit. Now, every 4 years, you get a $120 credit that can be used on global entry or TSA PreCheck. Now, global entry obviously comes with TSA PreCheck, and if we already have global entry, we can use this credit on somebody else. Now, unfortunately, authorized users do not get this credit. Unlike the American Express Platinum card, which even in their free version of authorized users, remember there are 2 versions of authorized users, even the free ones get this credit. And you can add up to 99 authorized users to your American Express Platinum card. Now on the app, you can only add up to 4 or 5 authorized users, and after that you'll need to call in to add up to 99. And every user that you add, they get global entry for free. And you can have if you have multiple platinum cards, then that's multiple of the 99 limit. So if you're really into global entry and you're really into signing up all your friends to global entry, then that's something that you can look into. So the next benefit, which is a lot of people's favorite benefit, is the lounge access. Now with the Capital One Venture X card, you obviously have access to Venture X lounges, which there are a few throughout America. These lounges, they can be very beneficial for us. You know, they have lots of food, they have drinks, they have beverages, they have coffee, they have reflection rooms, prayer rooms, they have showers, they have sleeping pods even. And however, the lounges can become kind of stressful even, because many times when we go to a lounge, we see that there's a long line, or when we get into the lounge that's overly crowded, which is a problem throughout America right now as more and more people are getting into credit cards. However, the nice thing about the Capital One Lounge is that they have a to-go area where they have pre-packaged foods and pre-packaged drinks that you can take with you to your flight. They have them ready at the entrance. So that's also nice. Capital One has also introduced the landing, which is, it's like a restaurant. You sit in, it's all complimentary. You sit in, they give you a menu, and you order your food. Now, Capital One does give you, the Venture X, it does give you access to Priority Pass, which also gives you access to American Express escape lounges and a one-time yearly visit into a Chase lounge. So that's also something to look for. You know, if you're known for having a lot of layovers in one specific city because of your travel patterns, then this is something that you can look into, that the places that you have layovers in, or that you're likely to have layovers in, or where you depart from, they have lounges. That's something that you can benefit from. And when we're entering the Venture X lounges, we have the opportunity to bring 2 guests, and we can have authorized users in the card. And the authorized users, when they enter a Venture X lounge, they can bring in 2 guests. So like, let's say you're a family of 5 people and you have the Venture X card, and you give all your family members Venture X cards. So that's 5 total people that have 1 you as the main user and 4 as the authorized users. That's 5 total users. Each of them can bring in 2 people with them to a Venture X lounge. So you can bring a party of 15 people into the Venture X lounge. The next benefit that we're looking at is the Hertz presidential status, which you do have to sign up for it, but it'll give you free automatic upgrades and various other benefits that you get. You can also match it to other car rental companies that'll give you their own status, and your authorized users can get this benefit as well. They can sign up for Hertz presidential status. The next thing is purchase protection, which is basically a 90-day window so that you can have in case if there is any theft or damage to items that you bought, you can get reimbursements for up to $10K. For instance, if you buy an $8,000 watch and it ends up getting destroyed or stolen within 90 days, you can enter in a claim and you can hopefully get the $8,000 value back. There's also the extended warranty and return protection. Now, the American Express Platinum does have a similar policy, and the Chase Sapphire Reserves policy lasts for 120 days. And authorized users of the Venture X card get this as well. Now, the only caveat is that we have to do these purchases entirely with the card. You can't buy watches with other cards and then expect to use the Venture X benefit from it. The next benefit that we have is the cell phone protection benefit. So as long as you pay your bill entirely with the Venture X card and you regularly pay your bill, it's as long as you've paid the previous month's bill with the Venture X card, then if your phone is damaged or it's been stolen, and it can get approved coverage for up to $800 for repairs or damages. However, there is a $50 deductible, and you can only use this benefit twice a year. So at most, you can get a $1,500 value from it if you've broken your phone twice and it costs $800 or less to fix. Now, other family members and their devices, they're also covered with this as long as they're paid under the same bill. The American Express Platinum has this feature. However, the Chase Sapphire Reserve does not have this feature. And also, this feature does extend to authorized users as long as they paid their bill with the Venture X card. The next benefit that we're looking at is the rental car insurance. Now, the Venture X provides you primary rental car insurance. This means that you do not need to file through your own insurance if something were to happen, and you can deny the insurance that the rental car company provides. Now, it covers damages caused by theft or collision. However, it doesn't cover expensive cars, as in cars above $75,000, or exotic cars. And it does not work if you are renting a car in Israel, Jamaica, or Ireland. It lasts for a couple of weeks if you rent in America, and it lasts for about a month if you rent in another country, unless if it was one of those countries stated earlier. The Chase Sapphire Reserve has this without limits of other countries, but it does not work if you're a resident of the state of New York. The American Express Platinum does not have primary rental car coverage at all, but you can purchase it for $25 per rental. So it's important to say that this does not cover everything, and we would need a whole video to look at what the coverage is about. And this benefit does extend to authorized users as well, as long as they pay their rental with their authorized card. The next benefit that we're looking at is the trip cancellation benefit. You can get up to $2,000 in unreimbursed expenses for you, your spouse, and your dependent children, as long as they're all on the same ticket. This can happen due to two reasons. Number one is the airline files bankruptcy, and because of that, they're no longer flying. So let's say you're flying a lesser prestigious airline, and we're not going to name any names because that wouldn't be fair to airlines like Frontier or Spirit. But let's say you're flying Frontier and you have a layover in Chicago, and while you're in that layover, you get a notification that Frontier has filed bankruptcy, and because of that, you can no longer fly on your upcoming flight. Well, that's when this benefit kicks in. You can also get this benefit if you die, or you have a serious injury, or someone in your immediate family dies or has a serious injury. You do need to file a claim, and many times you'll need to provide a doctor's note or a death certificate for this. The next benefit that we're looking at is the trip delay insurance. So if your trip has a delay more than 6 hours or causes an overnight stay, then you can get reasonable expenses reimbursed up to $500 for each purchased ticket within the ticket itself by spouses or dependents under 22. So if you, on the same ticket, flew with your spouse and flew with two dependent children, then you'll get $2,000 worth of reasonable expenses to use if your flight has been delayed by more than 6 hours or has caused an overnight stay. Now, what counts as reasonable expenses? Anything that's reasonable. So if you need to purchase food, if you need to purchase lodging, things like that, it'll cover that. There was an instance where somebody had a flight delay over a day, and they made a bunch of purchases. They went to a concert. Their concert wasn't reimbursed, but the food they purchased and the hotel that they stayed at, that was reimbursed. So obviously it only counts for reasonable expenses, and they're going to be the judge of that. You have to file a claim. And it also doesn't work if you're in your home city. So if you live in Dallas and then your flight's been canceled in Dallas, you can't get a hotel there. You have to stay at your home. Now this credit applies if you've paid at least a portion of it through your Venture X card. What that means is that you need to pay at least $1 of it. The Chase Sapphire Reserve has this benefit, but you need to pay your entire trip in full. The American Express Platinum also has this benefit, and you need to pay an entire round trip in full. And it only works twice a year for American Express. So if you have some Southwest credit or some United Travel Bank credit, and you pay at least $1 on your credit card, then it will be covered with the Venture X, but it will not be covered under the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the American Express Platinum. And similar to the other benefits, authorized users get this benefit as well, as long as they're the ones that have paid their ticket. Now, there are several other benefits of Capital One cards. For instance, you get the Capital One Cafe, you get 50% off their beverages. They do have some coffee or some tea. So if you stop at a Capital One Cafe, you get 50% off there if you pay with the Capital One card. You also get offers on your Venture X card. Now, all credit cards get offers. You have certain offers in your American Express Platinum card, and you have offers in your Chase Sapphire Reserve card. Even lesser known cards get offers. However, some of the offers on the Capital One Venture X are pretty insane. For instance, there is a thing a couple of days ago with GoPuff. If you spent money on GoPuff, you get 100% back. You would get 100% back on GoPuff, and you get it in miles. So if you spent a certain amount on GoPuff, you would get that back in miles. You were basically getting GoPuff for free, or if you value miles more than a cent per point, then you're getting paid to get that. Capital One Shopping, the shopping portal, which you don't need a Capital One card for, they also have a lot of deals. They had 30% off of Dell purchases the other day. Right now, they have 50% off on Sam's Club memberships. So that summarizes the benefits of the card. So hopefully this has helped you make a decision on if you want the card or not. If you do want the card, as I said earlier, there is a pre-approval tool down below. You can see that if you're likely to be approved or not. Obviously that's not 100% accurate, but it does give you a good idea. And the nice thing about the Venture X, which unlike the American Express Platinum card, since most people who will be getting the Venture X are going to be early in their credit card journey, if a year from now you get the Venture X card and you realize it's not for you, you can downgrade it to a no annual fee card. Now, since the Venture X has come out, which it's been out for a few years now, it has continuously been devalued. There were features, there were benefits of this card that no longer exist. There were Priority Pass restaurant benefits that no longer exist. There were Plaza Premium Lounge access benefits that no longer exist. So, as it's decreasing, this video was made in January of 2025. So in January of 2025, this might feel like a good deal for you. But if you're watching this in the future and realize that many benefits have gone away, or if the annual fee has gone up, for those of us who have had the American Express Platinum or the Chase Sapphire Reserve for several years, we know that annual fees do go up with time. However, the interesting thing about Capital One is that the previous credit cards that they've had, when they increased their fees, anyone who had the card before the fee increase, they were grandfathered in to the original fee that they signed up for. So there used to be a Saver card that it was different than the Saver card that exists now, but it used to be free and then it went up to a $95 annual fee. However, anyone who had that card before the annual fee went up, they kept the free. They kept the card without needing to pay the annual fee. So that's something to look into too if you're thinking about getting a card now or in the future. And if you've had the card, like I said, if you've had the card for a year and you realize that it's not for you, you can downgrade it to many other Capital One cards, such as the Quicksilver card, which has no annual fee. If you have the American Express Platinum card and a year later you realize it's not for you, you can downgrade it to other cards, but those cards still have annual fees. And you could cancel the card. And however, canceling a credit card obviously has detrimental effects to credit scores. And obviously, this is your decision. This video wasn't made to convince you to get the Venture X card. And it wasn't to convince you not to get the Capital One Venture X card. It was for you to make an informed decision. Thank you.